Our next presenter is Rob Tyson, Managing Director of Peel Mining. Without further ado, let's hear it from Rob.
G'day, thanks for having me again. Again, wish I was probably in Queensland, but hopefully we'll be able to get over there soon. So look, I'll share my screen, bear with me. So is that working, Amy?
Perfect.
All right, let's get into it. So look, Peel Mining is a New South Wales focused company. We are in the western part over near Cobar, and I guess the most recent update to the company, especially since last year when I presented in Noosa, is a transformational sort of copper gold consolidation that's come about. So I'll just jump into this and move it along. Okay. So, looking at the corporate side of things, we've got about 340 million shares on issue. That's expanded from where we were at Noosa last year. We had about 240 on issue at that time. Market cap is a little bit lower than what's up there. We're trading about 24 cents a share, so about 80 million market cap. We've got about $5 million cash in the bank, net of a transaction that is due to occur shortly. And we've got a holding in Saturn Metals, and Ian Bamborough presented to the conference yesterday. And Saturn Metals was spun out of Peel a couple of years ago, and that's worth about $3 million at the moment. Our largest shareholder is Hampton Hill Mining. A gentleman by the name of Josh Pitt is the man behind that company. St Barbara Limited is also on the register with about 12%, and they've been very supportive of our endeavours over the last few years. Directors have skin in the game, and we're a relatively tight stock. Top 20 is around 65%. So you can see we fell away with both the zinc market and then COVID into the new year earlier this year. But essentially, since we announced the transaction, which is to buy back the other half of our Mallee Bull project, our share price has rallied, and certainly we've become more of a copper-centric company than zinc company. Just a four-man board, Jim Simpson and myself are the technical side of the team, but Graham Hardy and Simon Hadfield, certainly lots of commercial and entrepreneurial skills there. So looking at the company, bear with me, just making sure you can see it properly. So at a glance, look, we're a very good exploration company. We won the AMEC Prospector Award last year. We're very proud of that. And that was born out of, I guess, the culture of the company and the modus operandi. We put money into the ground. We always have. We've drilled about 230 kilometres since listing around 13 years ago. We've made 3 true greenfields discoveries: Mallee Bull, Wirlong, and Southern Nights. But we've sort of, I guess, recognised some historic deposits that have sat idle and unloved at Mayday and Wagga Tank. And so essentially we have 5 deposits under our belt. We're at a point in time where the discoveries, we believe, constitute critical mass for mine development, and we're moving from discovery to mineable resources. So that's where we're at: convert and define mineable resources. So we're drilling busily at the moment at Mayday. We've just about finished some drilling there for a resource upgrade. And all of this is about a hub and spoke model that we're looking to implement in our part of the Cobar Basin, based off these 5 deposits and putting in a central milling facility. We've got wonderful land tenure, and I'll go to that now, where we see great opportunity to keep filling that project pipeline into the future. The left-hand side of that chart, you can see of that slide, you can see the pie graph there. That's the metal endowment of the Cobar Basin, and it probably reflects to a large degree sort of the split that Peel is exposed to in terms of metal exposure, although copper is probably slightly larger and gold is slightly less. But copper probably, you know, in terms of metal exposure, is about 50% of the company's, I guess, economic exposure, followed by zinc, and then gold, lead and silver after that. We have this wonderful land position. When I presented last year, the land position looked quite different. It was a bit of a patchwork quilt, multicoloured, representing different ownership structures. We had both CBH Resources, who own the Endeavour mine to the north of Cobar there, and we also had JOGMEC as joint venture partners. CBH Resources put an offer to us that they had received from a third party back in July, $17 million for their share of Mallee Bull. We've since done a fundraising to secure that other half, and settlement is only is essentially a technicality now. It's waiting for the minister's consent to transfer. But off the back of that, JOGMEC, the Japanese government entity who were there in support of CBH/Toho, essentially decided to withdraw from the project, and they had spent $8 million, which we received back for zero cost. So we now have 100% of a fantastic strategic land holding in the central southern part of the Cobar Basin. You can see where our discoveries are, and we're proximal to fantastic infrastructure. And this part of New South Wales is really, in my opinion, the best part of New South Wales to be exploring. It's very strongly endowed in deposits and significant mines, but also it's just easy to work in. The landowners are very, very positive and easy to get along with. So our plan is this hub and spoke strategy, and so we're really at this point where we need to define the critical mass to support a substantial new polymetallic processing centre. So, you know, this is born off the fact that we now control 100% of everything under our belt, and I guess until that point it was hard to push this concept with our partners. We're targeting a critical mass of 12 to 15 million tonnes. We certainly see 10 million tonnes as achievable from our existing resource base, and all of that is going to be done through upgrading our existing resources. So the Mayday and Southern Nights resources have been drilled so far this year, but we're going up to Wirlong soon to hopefully put together a maiden mineral resource at Wirlong, which is a copper-rich system. And then we're going back to Mallee Bull early in the new year. So the first half of next year will be heavily exposed to copper drill results. And I think people will remember, hopefully, that we've got some of the best copper results in Australia at that point. This concept of the hub, so it's we're aiming for sort of a 1 million tonne per annum throughput, and it really is being, I guess, conceptualized to be able to process all the sorts of ore that currently exists under our belt, which is, you know, there's multiple styles already, but we're also mindful that we need to be able to process other styles into the future. So, so it needs to have gravity and cyanide leaching for gold and precious metals, but also sequential flotation. We're also looking at ore sorting. It's a technology that's come a long way in the last 10, 15 years. It hasn't been deployed very much recently, and that's mainly because mills have been built on top of their ore deposits. Under this scenario, it certainly has a lot of potential. So I won't run into this other than to say, obviously, gold's had a fantastic run, and in Australian dollar terms has been very strong. Copper is certainly heading in a similar direction, and we're very bullish. I'm very bullish on the future of copper. It's obviously the key to solving the world's climate crisis challenges, and the electrification of the world is what's needed to happen, and copper is central to that, obviously. So we're not replacing what we consume, and most of the deposits that are in the development pipeline are less than 0.5% copper grade. So when we look at our asset base, Mayday brings us exposure to gold. So this was half of the Mallee Bull project. It sits on that tenement. So we got this back, as well as obviously the other half of Mallee Bull. So we're getting some exposure to gold. We put a maiden inferred resource to that recently. fairly modest, but it's significant in the sense that it's likely to be open pittable, and certainly our resource we published was constrained by an open pit. We're now drilling that out. It's a typical Cobar style VMS, so we see great potential at depth. We've just published 3 results so far in the last week or so. They're on the left-hand side of this current slide. So nice wide intercepts, fairly modest in grade, but within those is some high-grade mineralisation. So I refer you to our recent announcements to have a closer look. But this system's got great potential at depth. But Mallee Bull is really, I guess, what I see as a big part of our future. And this is one of Australia's highest grade undeveloped deposits. It's a classical sort of Cobar style system. Starts very shallow, about 60 metres below surface. We hit some massive sulphides. They're primarily zinc, lead, silver, gold rich. But at about 200 metres, the system kicks into a copper rich system. And we've defined it to at least 800 metres below surface. A bit too expensive to keep drilling below those sorts of depths, but it has a significant copper resource to it as it stands, just under 7 million tonnes at just under 2% copper. We think once we do this drill out, we'll hopefully be upgrading that resource in terms of mineable resource opportunity. So just reminding people what has been returned from Mallee Bull in the past. Look, these are the intercepts I remember fondly, and I think when we start drilling out, we're likely to achieve similar types of results. So we're aiming to upgrade this resource early in the new year. We'll start the drill out early in the new year, aiming for an upgrade to the resource by about mid-year. Southern Nights, look, this is a VMS system we discovered about 50 kilometres to the southwest of Mallee Bull. We've got a mineable resource there as it stands, I guess, in what we term pseudo reserves. So we've done the resource estimation, block modelling, and then we've run it through an NSR filter that stamps every block with a dollar value concept, and then we've run that through stope shape optimisation. This system is going to keep growing. As you can see, you know, on this long section, it's quite an extensive system. We've been drilling down the south where we had some good indications of extensional opportunity, and that system is we've hit some more mineralisation outside the existing resource model. We're waiting on assays for that, but I'm encouraged by the fact that this system we haven't found the edges of it yet. So this system will grow in our view. And then Wirlong copper deposit. This is where we're heading to shortly. We're hoping to be up there before Christmas to start a resource drilling program. We're sort of finalising the planning for that now, but I see a couple of months worth of drilling. That's some high-grade copper mineralisation I'm holding there that we found a few years ago. It was about 9 metres at 8% copper. We've had some really strong hits. It's taken us a little while to get our heads around the structural controls on this deposit, but we think we understand them now. And so our drill out is going to focus on the top 300 metres, targeting a high-grade lens we believe sits there called the Tally-Ho lens. And that will hopefully have a resource stamped on it by around April. So forward program, lots of drilling, copper-centric, primarily going into mid-year next year. We'll finish a Mayday drilling in the next week or so, have a resource, an upgraded resource to that early in the new year. Wagga Tank, Southern Nights, we're going to be quite, I guess, surgical in our exploration there and just, I guess, follow each hole and learn as we go. So we're not hitting that early with the major drill out, but certainly Mallee Bull and Wirlong coming up very soon are the focus of the next 6 months, sort of leading up to the end of June next year. So if you're looking for copper exposure, I recommend you have a closer look at Peel. There aren't many companies you can find decent copper exposure in Australia, and that's my bell. So I'll say thank you very much, Amy and Noosa Mining.
Thank you so much, Rob. Question. Questions for Rob and for any of our presenters today can be directed to the contact links under the company descriptions at noosaminingconference.com.au.